to the extent that the emergency manager assigns matters to council. So yes, the Roberts Rules does apply in a meeting, as do the orders issued by the emergency manager. One of those orders that was specifically directed at you was intended to control these meetings and to ensure folks aren't sitting here for hours and hours while you make a speech after every single person speaks. It was intended to empower the council president to control these meetings, to ensure that they're professional and dignified, and that folks that come down here aren't subjected to this. The council president should be able to run these meetings, to recognize you at the time that is appropriate, and you can make your comments then.
So we are working under Robert's Rules.
Subject to the order of the emergency manager that empowers the council president to recognize you when the council president sees fit.
That's what Robert's Rules do, Mr. Bate. You say through you to the president. That's how you get recognized under Robert's Rules. So let's not debate it. I understand what Order 3 says, and I understand what Robert's Rules say. Both of them say you get recognized by the president. So God bless you.
Thank you. This is a time set aside for members of the public to address the City Council. Madam Clerk is going to keep time. I'm going to ask you, she'll call your name, come to the microphone. You have 5 minutes to speak. Upon reaching the 4th minute of your 5 minutes, I will ask you to sum up, and at the conclusion of your 5 minutes, I will ask you to sit down. At the conclusion of all the members of the public addressing the City Council, at that time, so that all members of the public had the right to address us in a timely, orderly manner, I will then ask council members to respond to those in the public that have expressed concerns for us. So first to be called this evening, Madam Clerk.
First to be called is Mr. R.L. Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell.
Mr. Mitchell. Good evening, Earl.
Hey, good evening, Mr. President, and to all the council members of Flint. I'm R.L. Mitchell. And first of all, I grant each and every one of you council person of finance, me, myself, and I grant you a financial, for you to never be broke dealing with this city, even though we got a emergency financial from the Capitol, Lansing up here, sitting right down here early, trying to call the shots before him. And then, what I want to address today through you, Mr. President, to the chair, Madam Clerk, to the new council lady over there, Galloway, ask her a question, and she's going to give me an answer if it's all right. Okay, Ms. Galloway, how do you feel about one of your comrades being threatened to speak his first day on the job like you for freedom of speech under the name of the first council, Mays? How do you feel that's injustice for the rest of your councilmen? Could you receive me feedback on that?
They'll give you feedback. Each council member will answer your questions at the end of the comment period.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
And back to what I was going to address you about this city, this financial snow emergency stuff. About this ship. The act of God has something to do with this. I was snowed in from my house, but I was snowed in to another place, and I ended up getting robbed because they wouldn't let me out unless I paid some money, because everybody else was in there paying the money and everything. Hey, I said, let me go get my shovel. Let me go borrow a shovel, and the shovel's out. We stuck in, but I went, she wouldn't let me get a shovel, so I went to my resident, and I couldn't even get to my own house. I felt like, man, the snow was up to my waist on my street, and I had to shovel my, and I come here to listen at this early fella talking about putting the Capitol on a 357, talking about see how we gonna get out from under the gun. I mean, Act 347, 336, whatever that, somewhere in the numbers. But it feel like we're on the 357, all this drive-by shooting and stuff. And you had like You the main kingpin, Mr. President, sitting up there, you and the city attorney over there talking about Mays, doing that all, talking about indecent speaking and talking about public speaking, and that's why I asked Mr. Conway to respond on that stuff. And you see what the man trying to talk about, that Republican talking that junkie there, talking to Democratic, and we supposed to be Democrats, and I should have said take that stuff back down to Alabama. But the Detroit police up in here, what Jimmy Patrick and all that stupid, looking curiosity and all that. And got my councilman over there scratching his head, sweating bullets, under the name of, I got my councilman name, but looking at names. Hey, I'm gonna use my time.
Thank you, R.L. Our next speaker, Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Quincy Murphy. Mr. Murphy.
Good evening, Quincy.
Good evening. I got a couple of things that I want to speak on tonight, so I'm going to try to be as brief as possible. The first one I would like to talk about is referring to council number 130748 on page 5 with the press release with the weather issue that was related. And what I'm here to request tonight is to have some type of public hearing or a meeting to discuss the situation that happened recently with the ice storm and the snowstorm in the community. And I won't read off of this letter, but I do have a letter that I will submit to you guys. But recently, as we all know, we had a bad ice storm and a snowstorm. And in my community, on my street, on my block, I can only speak for what I had to witness in my community, where 314 and 318 Myrtle Street, there was a big tree that fell in the backyard of one of the residential houses and tore the roof up, the side of the house, bust the windows out, and it's in both of the driveways because their driveways are kind of butted together. And that situation is still exists. The residents don't have the means of income to actually get the tree removed. Across the street from me, there was a tree that fell in the street that me and my neighbor, Leon, went and moved the street, tree on the side just so cars could get through on the side of me. You got a tree that fell halfway but didn't fall all the way in the street, so cars got to go around and go on the yard across the street from them. Looking at the wiring and the trees and the wires, I think it's a situation, and I think it's a urgent situation that need to be addressed. And I was listening to you guys earlier about the 30 grants that you guys applied for. So maybe this could, even though it was a bad situation for it, maybe it could be turned around to a positive situation where we can go and try to find some funding, because I think we may need to look at some federal, state, and local funding to deal with all the trees that has failed in the community. I also think maybe we can get someone or some volunteers per ward or something to go out and just actually assess how bad the trees have failed in the community, because I don't know if we actually know how bad it is out there in the community. And from my street and in my block, it's real bad, and I hope we can be able to address it. I called the Parks and Recreation and left messages on the phone for them and gave them the addresses, so it almost kind of seemed like because we moved the tree to the side that it's not going to get picked up at all now. But there are several trees and branches out in the community, and I don't know if it's just in our area, but I'm quite sure it's a whole bunch of other people that's dealing with this same situation. I had, why this is so compassionate and a concern to me, one of my residents, power went out because the tree fell on the utility wires, and she had just got out the hospital. She was on oxygen, then wasn't able to, thinking the consumers was gonna come back on instead of just leaving, and she ended up passing away. I don't know whether it was because of health issues or because the utilities was off. So we don't want this to happen to other residents, because I know when I look right across the street, it's trees and all kind of wires, and I don't know if it's the city responsibility or the consumer. So that's one of my issues, and I'll give the emergency manager and the mayor a letter requesting that we come together and kind of form something to address this issue. My other issue that I will pass out to you guys is I submitted a letter to Jackie Poplar, councilman for the 2nd Ward, and CC Brian Nolden, and hopefully the rest of you guys receive this. As you know, we've been working on trying to get Bunch School and open it to a community center. And what I requested from City Council, and I'll pass this along with you guys, is to draft a resolution so that we can submit to the school board of support and us
Quincy,
turning this community
you need to
center.
sum up. You have 1 minute.
And turning this community, this school into a community center. And before I sit down, one of my main concerns is I've been following the community development block grant dollars, and I noticed that the request for funds has not been posted, and usually January the 15th be the deadline for the community development block grant dollars, and it has not been posted. And if someone can speak on the community development block grant dollars and why it has not been request for proposals out. Thank you, and I'm gonna pass this around.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I would like to send a referral to Mr. Earley, to the Law Department to investigate the opportunity or options of any federal relief for the last 2 natural disasters. I'm speaking about the ice storm and the snowstorm that we had in the city of Flint, to see if there's any money available on the federal level or any other level to assist us in this type of effort to remove down trees and also help repair things that may have been damaged as a byproduct of that. And so I'd like to send that referral to Mr. Earley, and then he can communicate that to the staff to investigate the opportunity to see if we can get some federal relief, maybe FEMA dollars, I'm not for sure. But we definitely need to look and ask the question if we can receive some assistance as an indigent city.
Councilman Neely, I'm going to recognize your referral, but again, I'm going to request from my colleagues. We have a number of speakers here tonight. I received a number of concerns from residents that were at our last meeting that had to wait so long or they left.
Understood.
If we could just wait till the end of the meeting after all the speakers speak, make our referrals and make comments, and I will call on council members at that time. Our next speaker, Madam Clerk.
Next speaker is Barbara Griffiths Wilson. Ms. Wilson.
Good evening, Barbara.
Yeah, good evening and Happy New Year to everybody. There are so many issues besetting the city of Flint and Genesee County as a whole. And this particular issue, has been puzzling me, so I just thought I'd do a little homework and see what was going on with it. I want to ask the council some questions, and the first question is the council aware of the racial discrimination lawsuit that is threatening the city of Flint by Operation Unification Charles Young regarding NSP 1 and NSP 2? And are you aware that prior to the EM emergence that OU was financially secure and was sufficient in executing any reimbursable contract? Also, are you aware that Smith Village was taken on the pretense of their work being inferior, yet they have never received a citation from the city or HUD regarding NSP 1 or NSP 2? In addition to this, there is supportive documentation of the city's private meetings and minutes regarding NSP 1, by which the emergency manager states on record that the homes were in great condition, and the basements, the homes in the basements were in great condition, and that Mr. Young had done a great job. Also, in June of 2013, the EM sent a message to the governor that stated the homes were in excellent condition and the project was on target. This was the workmanship of Mr. Young. Last but not least, in a meeting with Community Justice Department, the previous EM was asked why he would not communicate or pay Mr. Young for the 6 months. And he stated he came to kill the project. Are you aware of that?
Thank you, Barbara. Our next speaker, Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Aaron Dion. Aaron Dion.
Good evening, Aaron.
Good evening, Council. Chief Tolbert, Mayor, Emergency Manager.
Will you pull the mic up? so that everyone can hear you. Thank you.
My name is Dion. I don't live in the city, but I do own about 40 rental properties, most of them on the east side, some of them on the west side. I've spent the last 9 years building my portfolio, you might say, although right now I'm getting kind of scared about some things falling apart, things that I don't really have control over, although I'm doing my best. 3 items, actually. I might tell you 10 days ago, no, just this past week, Friday, a tenant of mine inquired about maybe moving to Flint Township because some property owner had moved out of the property next to him, and there's a new family there that's dealing drugs. I said, well, call 911. Well, they don't come, he says. And I think I believe that. He says day and night, all hours, their customers are coming up honking the horn in the road. I can't believe that would happen in normal conditions, but I guess they're so brazen. People don't get in trouble for so many things. They don't worry about the police catching them. I've had difficulty evicting some tenants that actually there were drugs removed from the property from a police officer. I went about the course of action I believe was the best. I had to subpoena the police officer to be there. That is crazy. The police should be telling me, you come to court, we need to convict this person and put him in jail and have better people in the city of Flint. Things are backwards in that regard. I think the city police would be much helped if they would listen to and acknowledge complaints and offers of help and information from the landlords, business owners, residents, people like this. We really do have some knowledge that we can give you. Hopefully, Chief Tolbert can change the mindset of some of his officers with regards to that. And why am I worried about my tenant leaving? Well, on that same street, we get back to the 10 days ago, I was putting my materials and my tools in my truck, and I noticed somebody a few doors down parked on the wrong side of the road. They actually, at 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, walked up to the front door of a house, stole the aluminum storm door off of it. Well, I promptly called 911, got the license number, and long story short, I found them, not the police, I found them at a scrapyard over by Center Road and Robert T. Longway. Luckily, the police were able to show up, but because they didn't get there soon enough, they say they didn't have enough evidence against them, they let the guys go. As far as I'm concerned, that vehicle should have been seized right then and there. I'm not sure exactly of the process, but I'm not in the world that I would really need to worry about it too much, being a law-abiding citizen, but I think some more should have happened. What happens when my property goes vacant and maybe the drug dealer's next door, a passerby, who knows who it's going to be, probably a neighbor, breaks into my house and takes anything aluminum, storm windows, storm doors, plumbing, wiring, furnace, water heater, you guys know what's taken. And I've dealt with the scrap metal issue for way too long. Luckily, I figured out how to install electronic security systems, and that's why I sleep at night, and that's why certain people haven't seen videos of scrap metal theft aftermath in 3 years or so from me. I've been a lot luckier, let's say, with security systems, protecting myself when I couldn't get help from the police. And I will give Chief Tolbert, walking away, some credit. I've heard some good things. He wants to change some things. It sounds really good compared to the situation we've had previous to that. Now, what else causes me grief with regards to having that property vacant? Water deposit for tenants and the water rates. These two items are driving the people away from the city because the tenants can't get the water turned on. I keep a log of the people that call me when I have a house for rent, and usually rents in about a month after about 20 people have called, and maybe I've shown it to 5, maybe 8 people, if I remember correctly. Now it's more than triple that number. It used to be about a month or two maybe it would be vacant. Now it's 4 to 6 months. And still going. So I don't know what the top end of that's going to be. I'm afraid of that. I've done what I can. I've reduced the rents. I've even taken only the security deposit to move someone in with the addition of a receipt for them getting the water turned on in their name. I'm not even taking the first month's rent right there at move-in where I used to, and where, as a business person, I should be able to demand that. I'm letting it go for payments over the next couple months. And I've only done that twice since September. I've only had two new tenants lease up with me since then. So beginning of January hasn't been so good yet. Hopefully when people start getting the taxes back, maybe in February also, things will pick up. But it just seems to be going worse and worse every year. Every year I ask myself, could it get any worse? Hopefully this next year will be better, but it just keeps getting worse. So I think we need your help, council. We're working with the City of Flint Water Department and the Police Department expressly, working on these matters. I'm here as a landlord. I don't think I mentioned, I'm actually the vice president of the Landlords Association of Genesee County. I and we are here to work with you. We want you to work with us. If you have a matter where you think, hey, property owners might have an interest in this, let us know what we think. That way, if we come to agreement before a matter is passed, there won't be as many lawsuits, hopefully. We can all be on the same boat.
Please sum up. You got 1 minute.
That's the end. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker, Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is John Billings. Mr. Billings.
Good evening, John.
Good evening, John Billings, 408 Grace Park. I'm up here to speak about two things, really. First, the snowing, the plowing of the streets. I lived in this city over 40 years. I've seen way more snowstorms than what we got this last couple weeks. City had never been shut down a week. Our streets have never took a week to be cleaned. My neighbor was cleaning the street out, not his driveway when he died. And we could have got the street cleaned because his driveway was clean. What he did when he backed out his driveway, same problem I'm having. We got water running from a water break. It built a hill, and the hill freezes, turns into ice. So when you go down, you're doing one of two things when you're going in and out the driveway. You're either tearing up the back end of your car or the front end of your car. I submitted a complaint for that. But it still got ice and stuff on it. So I say that to say this: if we get our streets clean, we do it as our driveway, we might have prevented that death, that man from dying. All that street had to do was be clean from the street to his driveway. His driveway was clean. My driveway be clean. We cleaned our driveway. Now we got these trees that fell down. They need to be picked up. You're trying to bill us for picking up the trees, but we're on fixed income. A lot of people can't afford that. So it seems like to me, the trees should be included in the blight. They're trash. And last but not least, I'd like to speak on my councilman. We the people voted here again. We voted here again where we could talk to y'all, not no third party runaround. We don't care how bad things get or cause we are forgiving. None of us is perfect. We all go through things, come out of things. I say that to say this. Y'all all need to get together. We don't need to talk to Darnell, give her more work to do than she's already doing when we have appointed us a councilman to cheer for us. And last but not least, when somebody come up here to speak, you shouldn't wait till everybody else has spoken before you comment. You should comment after each individual. That way it'll be fresh in your mind as to what they said and what we're trying to get across. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is the Reverend William Whitaker. Reverend Whitaker.
Good evening, Council, and have a blessed 2014. We're talking about money and saving money. We have a financial manager here. Republic has come in and taken over. Everything has basically been privatized. But yet there is Park and Rec that is still there, drawing over $80,000, and who does he have under him and what is he doing? Since the mayor's money was reduced, it seems as though, since he doesn't have that many personnel, that his money should be reduced also. He had great joy in laying off persons that said the only thing that he did was Twitter and play the games and all that. I don't know. But I know to put $90,000 and you have far less than you have and everything else is privatized. That's one complaint. The other, I take it very seriously that when I have a council person and I don't have access or rights to him, you have violated my rights, that of the community. Now, the other thing is that it seems to me that I heard that we are dealing with Robin Hooding. What do you mean by that? That the poor has to bear what is going on while people come in and take money and leave out. Maybe we need to change this tax structure, and people who take money out of this area ought to believe something or be required to stay in this city in order to do that. You cannot, according to what I've listened to the financial manager, what I've listened to Orr, both of them are on the same page. No one has any rights unless you do it my way. Where is reasoning? Amen. We have human will and determination. Amen. We can make decisions if we sit down. But when you're on welfare and you're faring well, you don't understand what it is to pay bills when you're receiving rent. That's my problem. Not including what's going on in the community. I get tired, I really didn't want to come down here, but it's one thing in my studies. I may not know too much about a lot of things, but one area it is, theology is my area. Amen. I know I'm in the top 5%. I'm here, it doesn't matter. You're in my backyard. I stayed back there. Amen. And I came back here to make a difference. How can you come up with $1.6 billion that was lost and all of a sudden you discovered it? There's no way in the world you can do that. You had to take it from the pension. People earned that. If you want to cut it, cut your salaries at the top. Be an example. It cost us. Every time you look around, you got a pipeline that you don't need that was said some years ago, 125,000, you could run the water and build here. How in the world do you start off with $60 on a water bill, turn around and you get 750 gallons for $16? It's 30 gallons of a bathtub. I don't know that many that's using that much water. I don't know, but I know a woman that she can't even get anything done, and she owes $300 to $400, but she can't get any assistance. Amen. Something's wrong with that people. I love people. I love senior citizens. Amen. General Motors is gone. You're going to have to create jobs. Amen. And guess what? Don't tell me about crime in Flint. Amen. I'm out in Holly and Grand Blanc. I'm going.
No, just please sum up. You have a minute.
I'm out there in Grand Blanc and Holly. There's more rims, more drugs, more stuff going on there. It's not reported. I was taught in seminary that media assassination. Amen. You don't even want the communication here of what's going on. Amen. And everyone has the right to know. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you. Our next speaker, Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Gus Clark. Mr. Clark.
Good evening.
Good evening to the mayor, council, and the city of Flint members. I got one or two things. The first one is that I got a condemned house on the side of me that has been for demolition almost 5 years or so and stuff. I heard about the blight now. And I would like to have it, I'm concerned about demolition, and personally myself, for me to have that lot or that land to do either some building on toward to my house, or to have more yard for the dog, or whatever may have you. But before I get to my question at the end, I want to speak about the snowstorm or so, you know, and this is mind-boggling to me, that the citizens of Flint, whatever the city asks for, whether it is to cut lots, yards or so that is vacant or so and stuff to carry on, or whatever that the city asks for the citizens to do, we abide to that or so and stuff. Now, just with this snowstorm, it was put on the news that if we don't move our vehicles from off the street, you will give us a ticket or tow it. Now, if the buses and EMT can't get in, how are we going to get them off?
Amen.
That's mind-boggling to me. Now, I called about 4 weeks ago, my city councilman in the 5th Ward, left a message about my concerns or so. I have not got a response from him. So, being that I'm here, I shouldn't have to come down here to get a response. So I'm going to respond to all of y'all about my concerns. Where do I go from here about my concerns? Where do I go from this point about my concerns? That's it.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Alonzo Goodman. Mr. Goodman.
Good evening.
Good evening to the city manager, to the mayor, the council, city clerk, Inez Brown. My concern is a couple of concerns. One of them is this affidavit of Sherry Eastep. Pardon me if I'm not pronouncing it right. But I was with Councilman Mays on that day, on December the 2nd, I think it was. And he had called me and told me that his vehicle had been impounded and that he needed a ride to go check on it. And when we come down there to deal with the issue, Councilman Mays was on the phone conducting some business. And she got offended because when she called him up front, he was still on the phone. And he was trying to tell the person, whoever it was, I don't know who it was, that I'm downtown, I'm trying to conduct some business, can I get back with you? And whoever was on the phone with him, whatever their concern was, seemed to be more important than what he was talking about. So I think she got offended because he didn't get right off the phone. Now, I read this affidavit over very carefully, and it didn't quite go like that from my recollection. I don't remember all this conversation. It went from her calling him to the window, he's on the phone trying to get the person off the phone, to her saying, we're no longer conducting business and let the shades down. Now, I can recall this conversation, but this conversation was discussed with her supervisor, because Councilman Mays got upset because he was trying to figure out how much it was going to cost to get his vehicle out. And his dialogue to the people that was in the lobby there was that if you come down here to conduct business, city business, that you should be treated with respect.
Amen.
You should be treated with courtesy. He wasn't angry. He wasn't unruly.
Amen.
I was there. I seen exactly what went on.
Amen.
So if we got people in position, leaders and police officers and stuff, we want to treat the public with respect regardless of what's going on.
Amen.
I'm quite sure she probably knew what had happened, had read in the news or heard it or whatever. So I'm saying is that he was simply trying to address that he should have been respected and treated with courtesy. And that's what went on there, not exactly what I'm reading here. Also, another concern I have is to Councilman Nolan. My concern is, and I want you to address this, you know, because you can't do it right now, so hopefully you can remember when you get a chance to speak. Someone called me and told me that you addressed them and said, tell Alonzo Goodman that he is not intimidating me. Well, I'm not a gangster. I'm not trying to intimidate anyone. So I didn't take it any further than that because I don't usually go with the third party. In what way did I try to intimidate you? What did I do or say to make you feel threatened? And if I did, I apologize because I don't operate like that. What I was downtown at the city hall with a friend, giving him a ride to the press conference. Now, if I did or said or anything that made you feel that I was intimidating you, I apologize for that because I'm not a gangster. I'm a law-abiding citizen.
Amen.
I don't do anything to try to intimidate anyone. Amen. And I felt threatened when that came in to me. I'm like, what? Why would he say that? So I want you to address if that's true. I won't take that any further because the person that told me that might be lying. So you can't always go by how a person feels. So people say that they're being intimidated or whatever, you know. Some people are intimidated by big black guys.
Amen.
You don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything. They
Amen.
just see a big black man and they're intimidated.
Amen.
You understand what I'm saying? So you need to investigate
Amen.
what's going on. I make a lot of people upset and afraid just by my voice. It's a trade in the Goodman family. We talk loud and we talk deep. And people are intimidated by that. But we're not no bad people. We don't go around beating up on people.
Amen.
Or mistreating people. Once you get to know the Goodmans, they some pretty decent people. They some pretty nice people. But your first impression of a Goodman might be that they mean, they angry, they violent. So I understand that. So I'm telling you, Councilman Nolan, please, when you get a chance to speak, because you can't speak right back to me, which I think is kind of stupid, but, you know, I ain't got nothing to do with that. But when you get a chance to speak, I want you to address, was that a true statement coming from somebody to let me know that you wasn't intimidated by me? I'm not trying to intimidate you because I'm not a gangster. I'm a law-abiding citizen trying to make the city of Flint better. Don't come against me. Don't lash out against me. Go out there and deal with them gangsters.
Mr. Goodman, can you sum up, please?
Okay, go out there and deal with them killers. The real people just cause the problem in the city. Not people like me. Don't deal with me like that because I'm not that guy. Deal with them real criminals and gangsters like that, not me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm gonna wait till the end. Okay. Our next speaker, Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Jerry Preston. Mr. Preston.
President Kincaid, council members, I'm unaccustomed to appearing here, although I've been here several times, but the Karagandhi water thing has been something I've been looking into, and I wanted to address some of the findings I had last council meeting, but that got canceled. So I sent you all a letter and sent you copies of some of the questions I thought some of the new council should be addressing. What I've left on your desk today is the comparison of two water bills, Flint versus Flint Township. And it's kind of interesting. It's my water bill versus one I've gotten in Flint Township. And the amount of water is 15 times in the Flint Township bill, and the Flint bill is just 1 unit. Yet it's $66 for my Flint bill, and it's $173, only a 3-to-1 difference. So I went back and recalculated both these bills using the Flint bill on the township rate and the township bill on the Flint rate, and you can see that no matter how you look at this thing, our cost of water is 2 to 3 times what the cost of that water in Flint Township is. Now, when you recognize that the city of Flint sells water to the county, and the county sells the water to the township, and there's billing and other markups all through there, you kind of wonder, how is that possible? Now, I do understand that one of you must have forwarded my letter that I sent you to Howard Croft. Howard says I've got an email coming with all these answers to this sort of thing. But one of the things I think you also need to look at, as I was watching you look at the audit tonight, is that when you give up the sales of water to the county and they to the townships, how much revenue is that going to reduce the city from? Because obviously there's some billing and markup that happens there. So I just wanted you to have this information, and I appreciate the time, and it's just a little bit of my research that I thought would be helpful to you.
Thank you, Jerry. Our next speaker, Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is A.C. Dumas.
Good evening, AC.
Good evening, Mr. Kincaid. My name is A.C. Dumas, and I am a resident of the city of Flint. Also host a live broadcast, The Truth Shall Make You Free, Saturday mornings, Flint's Gospel radio station, 1420 a.m. at 9:30. I've had some very interesting guests on my show, including the mayor, the police chief, Congressman Dan Kildee last week before last, and last week I had attorneys Greg Gibbs and Alex Gibbs, and they are representing URGE and the plaintiffs that filed a lawsuit against the emergency manager in the city of Flint. And one of the questions I asked was, if the courts remain in the favor of the plaintiffs and say what the emergency manager did was wrong, will that cause the city of Flint to file bankruptcy? I asked that question. The attorney says no. And they're putting out this that the city of Flint will have to file bankruptcy. I said, well, explain the difference between Detroit and Flint. You all should really tune in. It's a really good show. It really is a good show. And I pay for it out of my pocket. So you can't, I ain't bought now, of course. I don't know, I guess everybody has a price, but the truth shall make you free. And the attorney said the difference between Detroit and Flint is that Detroit owes billions to banks and other financial entities. Said that is the difference. And because the city of Flint gave away their assets, now they want to run and say, hey, we need to file bankruptcy. They say, no, the court's going to say no. You gave away your trucks. You took money and tore down Genesee Towers that we paid for. You've given away all your assets. Now you can't run and say, now we want to file bankruptcy. They will, Atwood Stadium, they will not allow the city of Flint to file bankruptcy. And one of the key issues of the Court of Appeals was this: you cannot do your budget on the backs of the retirees, because it was something. See, my dad was before he died, he was a General Motors salary, and they did my dad and our family wrong. But subsequently, we had Mom, who was a retiree on hourly, so that helped out. So you cannot have righteous expectations when they worked that they were going to have health benefits. And most of them retired years ago. When you get older, you have more health issues. You know, I used to have a lot of hair, but I don't have no more hair. We have health issues. So I take, I ain't gonna say offense, but.
Mr. Dumas, you've got one.
Okay,
minute.
well, let me go to this point because I want this answered. The state has $1 billion surplus. They cut revenue sharing to poor cities. I would make a request that council, the emergency manager, remember we are the child of the state, that they forgive the debt. They got $1 million surplus, and ours is only about $13 million. I would ask that you go and ask them to forgive the debt. Maybe they will, because after all, they did cut revenue sharing from the Board of Ed, from the city of Flint, from other cities, poor cities, all that. And you all tune into the Councilman Kincaid called in. Tune in to The Truth Shall Make You Free, because it will.
Thank you, Mr. Dumas. Our next speaker, Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Chris Del Maroni. Mr. Del Maroni.
Good evening, Chris.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Chris Del Maroni, and I live in Flint, Michigan. I don't know, do we need more of these at City Hall? I mean, that was a lot of snow we got, that we received. It was an act of God. I don't think anyone prayed for it, maybe for Christmas. But the service was terrible. The service that we received is not worth paying the taxes for. They should have just left the snow until the temperature got up to about 40 degrees and it melted or rained away, because that's what they did on my street. They came by Saturday. I didn't receive mail since January 4th. Thanks a lot, Flint. And then you wonder why people are leaving? Raise the water bills some more. Everyone blames the water bill rates on the financial manager. Yeah, we can do that. But how about this mayor we have right here? 70% within 12 months. Throw the blame around to everyone, because they all deserve it. You've got to be kidding me. You know, I look at the Flint Journal, our paper, and they got a picture of a front loader. I think that's what you call it. It's got a big scoop on the front end. You know where they were plowing the streets at? Some alley downtown Flint. I wonder how many cars went through that alley. I wonder how many people died in that alley trying to shovel their snow. I wonder how many people had to call for emergency services to go to dialysis, to go to the hospital for heart conditions. You've got to be kidding me. Mr. Earley, if you want to do something for the city, do this. Rustle away that Rutherford parking structure from the Downtown Development Authority. They don't deserve it. They can't afford the payments on it. We're paying for it. We don't want to do it. If nothing else, we want a parking deck that we can park in for free when we come down here at downtown Flint. Wrestle away from the Downtown Development Authority the ability to issue tickets, parking citations, downtown Flint. That should be City of Flint revenue money, not Downtown Development Authority money. We don't need our money going to the Downtown Development Authority for them to blow it up in the sky for fireworks on New Year's Eve, on the 4th of July. Fireworks are great, but when you can't afford it, you can't afford it. And you don't raise taxes on the people so that we can have fireworks. We've got a lot of other priorities in this city. One of the priorities is taking care of the residents of the city of Flint, the registered voters. And it's not giving more work to our city clerk to represent the people of the First Ward. If you don't want the gentleman that was elected to represent the people of the First Ward, then give it to someone who has the time. We come down here to City Hall and we fight so that the clerk office has enough funding to run fair and free elections. And when you take that away from her, you're not only taking away our vote, but you're taking away our ability to vote. And then there are those who will mislead us here even this evening. when they talk about new development coming into our community, and we'll be able to get the full tax amount based on the assessed value. Yeah, well, what kind of abatements are we giving to downtown Flint, Mr. Mayor? How much taxes are we collecting from them? It should be noted that we heard tonight that the property taxes cannot go up by more than 5% or the rate of inflation. That's true, except when the property is sold, then it becomes uncapped, and it can go up to that assessed value. We need to hear the whole truth. Smith Village, I said that should have been dumped a long time ago. The city of Flint should have paid back that $1 million years ago and been done with that, cut their losses.
Chris, you have 1 minute to sum up.
Thank you. The parking benches, we have those, the park benches for the buses. You can collect revenue from that. They're in the city, they're in the right-of-ways. They're in the right-of-way, they shouldn't be in the right-of-way. Some are actually on city property. I've mentioned it years and years and years in a row. You don't collect no revenue from that, but yet they're on city property. I can't put a billboard out front here. Think about the people. That's who you're all here to represent. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And our last speaker this evening, Madam Clerk?
Our last speaker is David Wilson. Mr. Wilson.
Good evening.
Just 2 or 3 times we done come into bankruptcy. Us citizens didn't do this. Our politicians stole. They did it. Amen. Now they want to be bailed out by us working retired people. We didn't tell you to hire your buddies. What Snyder sent him here. Fire all the rest of them. You don't need it. You don't need Wally. Snyder sent him. Y'all can't run it. Every time you look around, we're in bankruptcy. Look here. This water bill, whether you use it or not, $53. Do you pay for something you don't get? I mean, just robbing us blind. But we elected all you city officials, and you don't do a damn thing. Nothing. Just take from the working people and the retired people. Amen. Snyder sent him here because y'all couldn't do running goddamn Flint.
Amen.
That's why Snyder sent him here. That's Snyder's man.
Amen.
He came from Saginaw to here. He used to be here.
Right.
What the hell we need with y'all? Cut y'all money. We don't need y'all.
Right.
You can't run shit. Keep stealing. That's all you're good for is stealing. Taking care of your buddies. I'm
going to start you. Yep. Okay, that concludes our speakers this evening. I'm going to start this evening with Councilman Davis and go this way, and then I'm going to come over to Councilman Freeman and go that way. So, well, I'm moving it around, Councilman Neely.
I'm just
I just want to say, that to the mister that came up to the mic and said that I didn't answer his call, I am deeply apologetic about that. I answered over 60 calls during that time. I didn't sleep at all during that time. My wife would tell you, I sleep with my phone. I sleep with both of my phones. The only thing that I can think of what happened is that my voicemail was too full, my message was too full or something, because I literally sleeps with my phone under my pillow. And people can call me 3 or 4 in the morning and I will answer my phone. Because one thing that I vowed to do was be a loyal servant to my community, because I understood in the 5th Ward that we had no voice. We had no leadership. And I vowed to be the leader in our ward, the leader that we have been missing for so long, and that's the justice that I desire to give to my community. So, yeah, that's right, and you should, because that makes me feel obligated, and I love to live up to my obligations. So I am deeply apologetic, and in the long run, you will see in my 4-year term that I would be a loyal and sincere servant to the 5th Ward. However, I do want to be able to explain to the people that suffered through this tragedy and this catastrophe. The thing that I think that we should look forward to from this moment is to learn from this education, because it is education. And the education that I got from this is that we need to draw a preventive measurement so that it does not occur again. And drawing a preventive measurement so that it doesn't occur again, it goes to what Mr. Neely had proposed, and getting some federal money to get the trees up, and also make sure that our trucks are working in the near future, so that when it does occur, that we are able to attack the issues and be more proactive instead of being reactive. Because at this point, unfortunately, we was being reactive, and that wasn't good. We need to learn to be more proactive. So I understand your situation. That's about all that I want to say. And in the end, in my conclusion, I just want people in the 5th Ward and basically in the city of Flint to know that I will be a sincere and loyal servant to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Davis. Councilman Neely, do you have any response to any of the speakers?
Pardon me?
Do you have any response to the speakers at this time?
Yeah, well, yes, I have a comment.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do want to educate the public and the audience here and those who are going to be viewing this how the process works, because we do understand that we are in a financial emergency in the city of Flint. But quality of life and other things should not go, should not suffer inside the city of Flint. But currently, you know, like Councilman Davis has said and Councilman Mays and other council people here, we all share in the frustration because our hands are kind of tied here. The way the procedure is now set up is that we can't really direct any department head or any city services for residents, and we've never really had that full authority as a council in the past. But the process is set up now, and this is just an educational moment. Any services that we would recommend on behalf of residents, we have to forward to the emergency manager, Mr. Darnell Earley, and then he would disseminate that information to the department heads and give instruction. So the access point for the public, you've all had enjoyed the culture of being able to contact your representative, your elected representative, to get some resolve or get some answers. But we all were struggling for answers, and we all were trying to communicate with each other, trying to figure out what to do in these last 2 emergencies with the ice storm and or the snow that we just received. And so during this period of time is the time that we can actually forward recommendations for you as you come to the microphone and speak. But that is the current policy in which we have to work under this Public Act 436. That is the current law. That's the law of the legislators in Lansing, but that's not the law of the people, because the people rejected that particular law in the state of Michigan. But we will acquiesce to the current law to try to work through these difficult times. And trust me, I can say that I share in your frustration, and we will continue to do the very best that we can for you, to provide recommendations, to provide assistance, to provide educational moments. But understand this, we can't do anything unless it's under the consent of the emergency manager. And I will forward the request of Mr. Dumas, asking the state of Michigan, which has just boasted $1 billion surplus for the state of Michigan. But other communities such as Flint and school districts, the Flint School District, Pontiac, Highland Park, Ben Harbor, and other indigent communities have suffered because of the state revenue sharing that was reduced. But communities like ours need help and assistance. And I think that's a great point that you made, Mr. Dumas. We should ask the request, can you please issue that request, that they're asking them to forgive our debt, to give us a fresh start so we can move on providing good city service for the residents of the city of Flint that's still here remain. I thank you for that. Now, I'll yield the floor to the rest of my colleagues.
Thank you, Councilman Neely. Councilwoman Galloway?
I just, I didn't get the name of the resident that was interested in the lot that was next to his house. Whoever it was, if the house belongs to the land bank, there may be an opportunity for you to speak with them about getting that lot, if that's something that you're interested in. And so you would just go to the Register of Deeds, see who owns the property, and if the land bank owns it, you can contact the land bank. And they sometimes have where you can take care of the lot, garden on the lot, as long as you keep it up, or you can purchase that lot. And so if he was serious about that, I thought he might want to know that.
Thank you. Councilperson Van Buren?
Yes. What I would like to say is, one, we know there were many problems out there during the storm that we had, not only during when we had the icing and loss of power outages throughout the city, but then we were hit with the snow. Now we're going to probably receive some more inches of snow in a couple more days. But to recognize or acknowledge the volunteers that really helped out the neighbors, even the councilman that went out and plowed some of the areas. There were many of you that took it upon yourself to look out for others. Even my neighbor helped me with my car in my driveway. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have been able to go out to the street. We know, one thing we knew, this snow was coming. We knew we were facing ice and possible power outages. When we know that, we need to inform the citizens what they can do. What do we have in place? Do we have an emergency plan of some type